On today's Transport Evolved, the BMW i3 and Outlander PHEV get their crash test results, Volvo's new plug-in car, new Leaf ownership deals, and Rabid fanboys. Coming up next on Transport Evolved.
Transport Evolved is sponsored by audiblepodcast.com. To claim your free audiobook from a selection of over 85,000 growing titles for your iPod or MP3 player, head to www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved. And by your kind donations. To make a gift to the show or to set up a monthly subscription, head to www.transportevolved.com. We thank you for your kind support. And proud to support Chronovirus, the latest book by Long Island author Aaron Crocco. To find out more and get a free chapter, head to www.aaroncrocco.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 176 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday, December 1st, 2013. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield.
And I'm Mark Chatterley. How are you this week, Nikki?
I'm all right, thanks, Mark. I'm all right. I'm trying to get the hang of this new piece of software. We've upgraded from version 4 to version 5 of the broadcasting software we use. It's the one that does all the video switching between all the different shots and all the different people. And
the clever stuff I'm not allowed to touch.
The clever stuff you're not allowed to touch, but we will train you up one day if you're good.
If I'm good.
And you make sure that you go on the mat instead of on the middle of the floor. But today it's a bit slow because I pressed that button and there you are. So apologies if we are a little bit slow at getting this software running, but I will do my best to try and figure out what's going on and learn it over the next couple of weeks. I'm sure it will get better. Mark, are you feeling better now? You were really ill.
I'm not 100%, but I'm so much better than I was last week and earlier on this week. So, yes, I feel much better, thank you.
That is very good. That's very good. And I hope you enjoyed Thursday and Friday. You had pretty much all of the week off. And you're going to get next week off too. I mean, come on, you're a part-timer, Mark. Come on.
I am, yes. I'm really admitting I'm a part-timer.
Shall we introduce today's guests?
Yes,
first up, someone who has been on the show lots before. He's now got a new light. And he is wearing a baseball cap because it's just so bright. Mr. Robert Llewellyn.
Hello there, good evening.
Hello.
Good morning and good lunchtime.
Yes. I love the baseball cap. It's brilliant.
But it is appropriate because it is a Qualcomm-sponsored Drayson Racing baseball cap, which is obviously Paul Drayson holds the current land speed record for a certain weight of electrically powered vehicle, which is charged wirelessly by Qualcomm technology.
There you go.
There we go.
Robert,
they sponsoring, even though they haven't paid us.
Robert Llewellyn, corporate shill.
Never knowingly under-shilled.
Also joining us on today's show, a first-time guest on the show. He will be, I think, an interesting guest, and I think we're going to get him on again. I already have decided that. Martin Messer-Thomsen, welcome to the show. He's the gentleman who a couple of weeks ago travelled down an autobahn in a Tesla Model S that didn't even belong to him at full throttle. And for that, sir, we salute you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
I'm very fine, thank you.
Good. So tell us a little bit about what you do, because you work as a consultant in the world of EVs. You've worked for a while at Copenhagen Airport.
Yes, that's right. I worked for more than 10 years at the airport in Copenhagen, being responsible for the fleet of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids.
Cool. And there's quite a lot of vehicles there, isn't there?
Exactly. A lot of knowledge there. And then, 5 or 6 years ago, everybody talking about electric cars for the roads. And I thought that I might have seen all the child diseases in ground support equipment that I could take on to use in this field. So I started blogging and did a few videos and all that. So
cool. Now, Copenhagen, they used to have some of the little Peugeot 106 electrics, didn't they?
Yes, some of them. Not very many. But
do they still have them?
There are a few around. But
wow. Now, for those who don't know, obviously the Peugeot 106 was the last generation of electric vehicles. So they were around 1998, I think they came out, didn't they?
Yeah,
and you sometimes see them come up on eBay. I mean, I saw one on eBay a couple of weeks ago, a right-hand drive one, which is as rare as hen's teeth. But it's good to see them on the road. And they had nickel cadmium batteries.
Something like that. I'm not
Yeah. Really, none of this lithium-ion nonsense.
No,
Really fantastic. And now you're working as a consultant in the world of EVs, and you're setting up a tourist industry for Scandinavia.
Yes, the thing is, Denmark is sort of placed in the middle of Scandinavia. And so far, we don't have that many EVs. But as you know, in Norway and some of the other countries around are getting more and more EVs. So it could be very interesting to see if we can get some of these EVs to have some vacation here in Denmark and the areas around.
Well, it's very interesting for us because obviously here in England, we're just over the sea. So, it would be conceivable to get on a ferry and then drive across or ferry across and then have your EV in Denmark.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, if you could call that funny, we have a lot of infrastructure in Denmark. So we have a complete network of fast chargers and 22 kilowatt chargers. But we don't have that many cars. So we are sort of in the lead with the network, but we lack some cars.
Well, let's see what we can do about that. Robert, there's a future visit for you.
I am desperate. Well, I am planning to go to Denmark next year, and I will definitely be doing it in an EV.
So there you go.
It's all very exciting.
Well, as Martin proved, you can actually drive from Berlin to Copenhagen in a Tesla Model S without stopping.
Yeah,
that is just amazing.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
That's just insane. Now, Robert, you've been busy this week. You've been trying on Google Glass, you lucky so-and-so. Tell us about that.
I did do some other things this week, like, eat and sleep, but I did try and do Google Glass very briefly, actually. I only had them on for about 10 minutes. But it is, I don't know if I had opinions about it before, but I thought I was sort of mildly interested, but not like obsessed. But it was a shock for me just to put these things on, and I wear glasses normally, and so I can't see a thing without them, and I could see. And I could see the little thing really clearly. It's a little message up there in exquisite, it's a very particular font that it's in. Very fine, thin font, sans serif font, very clear, white. And it just shows up so clearly. And that was amazing when I dictated into them, and it was absolutely word perfect. That was amazing. I could just see the words I was saying appear. And the thing that I know they're going to do soon is I'm going to look at someone's face that I've met before, who obviously with my brain I can't remember, and it will measure their face. I mean, this is the where it all gets very complicated, but they have the technology, looks at their face, measures them, knows who it is, tells you who it is, says their name,
wow,
where you met them. I mean, that would be heaven for me.
Wouldn't that be great?
It's really interesting how quickly this technology has come along. When you look at the new Xbox, the Kinetic that's on the new Xbox, it can measure your pulse through its infrared light sensor. So we're only maybe a couple of iterations away from getting glasses that have an infrared sensor in it, and you can essentially, you kind of almost got an inbuilt lie detector because people's pulses go up when they're lying, and just all of these technologies just sort of run on from each other really quickly. It's amazing.
Well, it's interesting actually. It's mentioned in a book that I finished not so long ago, Bedlam, where the technology is that you have these infrared sensors and you have contact lenses, and you have all the information on your eyes almost. What I really want though is a set of glasses or a set of contact lenses that makes I'm getting to the age now where I'm going to soon need bifocals because my eyesight's a bit crap. And I've got to the point now where over the top of my I kind of peer over the top of my glasses when I need to read something. And so what I want is a pair of glasses that as soon as I bring up a book, it kind of adjusts my eyesight for me so I can see nice and clearly.
You can adjust the lens in some. That's a clever
and
idea.
Then it either relax it or that would be awesome. Anyway, enough about geeky techie nonsense and the future of everything. Let's talk about the news in the week. It started off with Tesla CEO Elon Musk retweeting and reiterating his belief that the NHTSA would clear the Model S of any safety flaws in the light of the two fires involving Model S sedans, which happened earlier this year. Now, I know that there were 3 fires, because someone picked me up on that earlier on and went, 3 fires, not 2. There were 3 fires, but one of them occurred in Mexico, which is out of the bounds of the NHTSA, and it occurred in a different set of circumstances. That one was a drunk driver who did something stupid to the car. I think the story was the car actually got some air and then landed on something. Going
so fast for a residential area, it hit a roundabout and went over the middle of it.
Yes, yeah.
That's the story I read, which is...
Whereas these two cars, one I think was in Washington State and the other one was in Tennessee, Mark, where they hit pieces of debris on the road and it punctured the bottom of the battery pack and blah, blah, blah. But Elon Musk has said, Tesla is so confident that there isn't a design flaw in this car that it hasn't even got any engineers working on a fix. It's just letting the NHSDA get on with it. Interestingly,
that's an interesting quote from him, saying there isn't a design flaw when they pushed an update to reduce the risk of it happening by raising the how far the air suspension will drop down. What would you class that in then as if it's not a design flaw?
I wouldn't.
So it going down to that level, they've determined increases the chances of this happening, so they've raised it. Surely that's a design flaw. Someone designed the air suspension to go down that low, and they're now saying it's not going to go down that low.
You could argue that it's a design flaw of the road. I mean, Martin, you've travelled along the Autobahn, and I would suggest that when you're driving on the Autobahn, it's very unusual to see any debris because they're so strict about keeping the Autobahn free of debris. And in the UK, I mean, seeing debris on the road is quite rare from my experiences. So,
I agree. It doesn't happen very often in Germany or Denmark or in the UK, but it does occur once in a while. So, but I think 2 incidents with the Tesla is not something something big yet, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Elon Musk decided it would make sense this week, and I don't know if this is a sensible thing or not, to retweet about Honda this week, who's had to have an official recall of the Honda Fit, or the Honda Jazz as we call it in Europe, for an electrical fault in the electric window mechanism, which could result in the car catching fire. It's a petrol car. And Honda's, and I'm afraid I feel obliged to giggle about this, Honda's advice to its owners, Robert, I don't know if you heard this, Honda's advice to its owners was just park it outside.
It'll be fine.
Just park it outside until we've had a chance to look at it. Just park it outside. And obviously in the same week, Ford came up with a recall of its Ford Escape for potential issues which could lead to a fire, which does kind of bring into question or remind us that, electrical fires in petrol cars happen quite a lot. Engines catch fire, fuel lines catch fire. It's quite a common problem. And so far, how many fires have we had in EVs? We've had a couple in Teslas. We've had a couple in... are
we going to include the Karma in this?
We've had a couple of Karma fires, yeah, okay. But a couple of conversions. Wasn't there a conversion in Denmark not long ago that caught fire?
Oh, we have seen some fires in some of the conversions, but that is something completely different than the cars from the OEMs. So,
wasn't there a driver of a converted Prius in Bristol that had a bit of a fire issue?
Never caught fire.
It would have been.
It never caught fire, Robert. It just went bang.
It just went bang. I beg your pardon.
It went bang.
Nikki, just park it outside.
Just park it outside. It was
down the road.
It was the day before the Tesla launch, wasn't it? Because you had an accident in your Prius a couple of days after mine got totaled. I was supposed to be going up to London in it, and I'd spent sort of 3 or 4 times I'd gone out that day. I'd gone somewhere, plugged in, charged, come back home, plugged in, charged, gone out, plugged in, charged, come back home, plugged in, charged, gone out, plugged in, charged. And I'd done about 60 miles just plugging, charging, plugging, charging, plugging, charging. It was a hot day in the middle of the summer. There was no thermal management, which is my fault. I am the idiot. I didn't put thermal management in my battery pack, and it did, go into thermal runaway. And there was like a sound of popping popcorn at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember it was a hot summer because it's one of those summers where you sleep with the window open. And I don't think I've had many of those summers recently, but it wasn't very nice. Ended up in casualty. That was horrible because I thought I'd got all sorts of horrible things happen to me. Let's move on, shall we? Thanks for that, Robert. All right, Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid's been given 5 stars in the Euro NCAP ratings this week, as well as receiving its official economy figures from the UK and exemption from the congestion charging zone. So my question is this going to be the ultimate Chelsea tractor? Now, Martin, do you have Chelsea tractors in Denmark?
We do have some, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, so, I mean, Robert, you know people who would buy this, right? I think it's probably the best way of putting it.
Why do I have to be the one that knows people? Yes, I do. I mean, I certainly am surrounded by very large and ridiculously oversized and heavy SUVs where I live, and they do, you know, I sink into despair. And quite a lot of the drivers that roar past me without flinching are people I actually know, which is, you know, so I do know people who go. Whether they would do that, I don't think they're not. I don't know who's going to buy these, because I don't understand why you'd buy something like a Range Rover or any of the big, you know, there are many makes of enormous things. The Porsche Cayenne,
the plug-in hybrid,
has always really been the one I found hard to love.
Oh, sorry, the Porsche Panamera plug-in hybrid also got its approval this week.
Panamera plug-in, but that's a sort of car. But I mean, the Porsche Cayenne is this.
The SUV,
SUVs in general. But the people who buy those aren't that bothered. You cannot be bothered about fuel economy if you drive a car like that.
Yes.
It's just impossible to even know what the two words fuel and economy might mean in one sentence. If you drive something like a Range Rover that does well under 20 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
And if you drive it like they do, then you're talking 14 miles to the gallon.
You see, I think the Outlander plug-in hybrid is a new generation of sensible plug-in hybrids. And I've actually changed my view recently on this. I used to be like EV, always has to be EV, always EV, plug it in, always plug it in, EV. But actually...
Sorry.
Sounded like one of those adverts, didn't it? EV all the time, EV plug in, EV in the daytime, EV in the daytime. If you need EV, call 100 EV. The idea is, I think, you know, we're all used to the idea of having an EV, and we're not phased by it. We're not phased by range anxiety. We're not phased about the prospect of running down with 5 miles of range left. But people who are used to driving petrol and diesel cars want to have that reassurance that comes from having a range extended engine. And I think by having a plug-in hybrid that does everything they need it to do, has 30 to 40 miles, and I think 30 to 40 miles is the sweet spot of all electric range. And then you know, when they're running the petrol engine and they see the fuel economy tick down digit by digit, which it does in cars like the Volt. I mean, I drive our Volt long distance, and as soon as it goes from electric to gasoline, I'm sitting here going, don't go any lower, please. The lifetime economy of our Volt at the moment is about 120 mpg, which is twice of what we ever got in our Prius. Ever.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, even on a good day.
But compared to what that car could
get, we plug in at every blinking opportunity.
Yeah. Which is a good thing. I agree with you.
To the point that I take the Leaf when I need to. But I think this Outlander is going to be great because it's going to tow. That's the first bonus. It's got all electric. It's got all-wheel drive. 32 miles of range they're claiming. So let's be conservative.
25.
Let's say 25.
Yeah.
2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, which is not great in terms of, you know, it's quite a large engine, but that should be quite unstressed, which means it should be fairly efficient. It's got 2 electric motors alongside the combustion engine, total power output of about 220 brake horsepower, top speed of 75 in EV mode, 106 when in combined mode, and it's 148 mpg on the Euro NEDC tests, which is probably 130 in real life, maybe 120, but that's still really good. And it's got CHAdeMO, it's got quick charge. This car comes with quick charge as standard, and it means that people who live in a city who drive to and from work, the average commute is 25 miles. They can stop and plug in at a CHAdeMO. You know, I mean, imagine taking that to IKEA with your to buy your furniture.
And that's what's always puzzled me about things like the Volt and things is surely that they make more sense to have a CHAdeMO port than a Type 1 or a Type 2, because they're only going to use a CHAdeMO for 5 minutes, which is literally, you're then talking about petrol station refilling times. I know you're not getting the same range, but you pull up, plug in, wait 2 minutes, unplug, and you're off on electric mode again.
Yeah.
That seems to make a lot more sense to me than pull into an Ecotricity station or whoever's station and then sit down for 2 hours while you wait for the 16 amps to top you up. Martin,
Scandinavians are known for their love of the outside, the outdoor world. Do you think this is going to sell in southern and northern Scandinavia?
In northern Scandinavia, I'm sure it will, but not in Denmark.
Right. Why is that?
EVs in Denmark don't have any tax on them, so they are quite favorable. But as soon as you put any kind of combustion engine in the car, it's up to normal taxation system, which is extremely high.
Wow.
So any kind of plug-in is impossible to sell in Denmark. We don't have any of these, or very, very few of them.
That's interesting to know. That's interesting to know.
3-4 times more expensive than the normal EV, so they don't have a market in Denmark yet.
There you go. But I did not know that. That's an interesting one. I can see it. I can see it selling in Norway. I can see it selling in Sweden.
Absolutely.
Because obviously they like going boating and camping, and they all have trailers. I mean, if you drive through Sweden, everyone's got a trailer sitting on their driveway somewhere.
Exactly, and the possibility to plug in with CHAdeMO is fantastic. I think that's a whole new perspective.
But 5 out of 5, it's a good start. So that's perfect for them. I mean, it gives them a really good base to start on. A car that didn't do so well this week, and this has been. There are 3 ways of looking at this. Is the next story. The BMW i3 got its Euro NCAP crash test rating this week. It got 4 out of 5 stars. That is the fact. Now, someone could look at that and go, 4 out of 5 stars. That's rubbish. Why isn't it 5 out of 5 stars? You know, the Leaf's got 5 out of 5. The Volt's got 5 out of 5. I think the Mitsubishi i-MiEV has 4 out of 5. But, you know, why did this car only get 4 out of 5? The reality is you have to actually read the report. It did better than both the Chevy Volt and the Nissan Leaf on adult and child occupant safety, I believe, but did less well on pedestrian and safety assist safety. So it kind of, if you're inside the car, it's a really safe car to be in, thanks to that carbon fibre reinforced plastic. But that very same CFRP shell, safety shell, meant that the pedestrian safety was diminished, partly because the windscreen pillars are just so damn strong. It scored 57% in the pedestrian safety and only 55% in the safety assist side. And the safety assist side, this is the really sad thing. That's things like all the technology that you get with the car to help you stay safe. And some of the things that's on the list, like seatbelt warning signs and speed limiters, are standard in other cars like the Leaf, but they're not standard in the i3 in the European market, and therefore it lost a star, which is really sad, Robert.
Yeah, no, I agree, because, I mean, having driven it, it's a fantastic car. I was really impressed with it. And something as simple as, I mean, I think we've even got a really ropey old, or we certainly had a really ropey old car, petrol car, I can't even remember what it was, that went beep, beep, beep when you didn't put the seatbelts on in the rear. I mean, that's not cutting edge touchscreen technology. It's some wire, you know, and a sensor, isn't it? I mean, it's very, very simple. And that does seem rather odd that they didn't put that in.
I mean, it's available as a part of a package. It's just not part of the standard set.
Yeah.
Martin.
It should be. I mean, it seems crazy. But also, I mean, that is worrying, the pedestrian stuff. I'm assuming it's because the bodywork is stiffer.
Yes.
Or more firm. That I guess that must be the way it's made. Because I mean, obviously you can feel if you push the Leaf's bumper with the palm of your hand, you could start to dent it quite easily.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very light, isn't it?
Interestingly, it was actually the edge of the bonnet lost it, or a lot of, but it scored no points for the edge of the bonnet because it was just so hard, apparently. Martin, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think it's some of the things you can easily fix by just having these seatbelt warnings as compulsory. So that should be easy to get it on a 5-star rating with this issue.
Absolutely.
But
And
also, but also one thing is very important, that each year they strengthen the amount of points you need to have for 5-star rating. So you cannot compare a car that was tested last year and the years before.
Yeah.
That's very important to emphasize because, as you said, the Mitsubishi IMU got 4 stars some years ago, and you cannot compare the safety of these two cars in any way. So that's also important.
No, I mean,
which is kind of a failing of the system, to be honest. I understand that it changes, but people are naturally going to do that. Some look at a car that they're currently driving and goes, "Oh, this is a 5 out of 5 star car," and the one I'm thinking of buying is 4 out of 5 stars. In a consumer's mind, they're not going, "Well, in the intervening 3 years, the test has changed 4 times." It's a real failing of the system that allows that to happen.
Well, it's the same as the fuel economy tests, really. I mean, do you remember, I think it was Fifth Gear, a couple of years ago, did a test between a Volvo 960 and a Volvo 960 and what else was the other car? I think it was a Citroen or a Renault, and they did a head-on collision. And they said, which car would you feel safe? Do you remember that, Robert?
Yes, I do.
And the Volvo, of course, which has this massive reputation for being this big, safe car, just completely disintegrated. And this little French MPV carried on quite happily. And it was just a reminder that safety is always improving. It's one of the reasons why our fuel economy struggles, because our cars get heavier with all the safety equipment in. I mean, I think it's unfortunate that BMW got that 4-star rating. BMW, very interestingly, did a kind of a Tesla-esque response to that this week, which was, well, you see, if you look at it this way, we did get 5 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
Which I thought was brilliant. You know, if Tesla can do it, so can BMW.
It's a very good
Touche.
thing to do,
But I think kind of more concerning this week, which I'll come on to a second. I've got just a comment from the chat room I have to say here. Someone said you have to flash back to the 80s when it says, please use your seatbelt. The door is ajar. Please close the door.
Yeah.
Do you remember, was it Austin Maestro, which is the most unassuming car? If you've ever, those of you in the States have probably never even heard of an Austin Maestro. My sister had the 1.3 litre version, which was just the basic version. But you could buy I think it was an MG version with a speech synthesis in it, a synthesizer in it. And there was this story of this person who was completely razzing this MG Maestro because it was quite a hot car round some roads or other, and ended up in a ditch upside down. And it had a speech synthesis in it that would tell you things like when the door was open. And obviously this door had flung open and this person's hanging upside down, half conscious, trapped by the car because it's crumpled and their legs are trapped so they can't move. To hear this woman go for hours and hours and hours on end. The door is ajar. The door is ajar. Anyway, onwards. BMW i3 Rex was tested by the Telegraph this week, Robert, and that did prompt some outcry because the reviewer was taking this i3 Rex all the way from London down to the Kent coast and back. So what's that?
140 mile round trip.
140 mile round trip. Thank you, Mark. And they went in electric mode and then came back and it ran out of electricity and the range extender kicked in.
I think it actually ran out of power. The Rex turned itself on before they got to the south coast.
That's right. Coming back though, the power was so low in the battery pack that it was just the range extending engine helping the car along, and they were driving a little bit quickly. They were driving above the legal limit at 75. They admit to that. Going up a hill, the car slowed down because it just didn't have the power to push it itself along at 75 miles an hour. It slowed down to 45, it reported, and then when they crested the hill, it sped back up again. Now, Robert, you and I have both driven the i3. I'm assuming you've driven the i3 Rex. I know I have.
Yeah.
Now, when I drove it, I didn't actually turn the Rex on for very long because we drove straight to Brands Hatch where the test was, and then we drove straight back. We didn't actually need to use the petrol engine. Right. And it was one of those trips where we turned the Rex on for about 2 or 3 miles. We heard it hum away in the back. We didn't notice any difference in performance because the battery wasn't empty when we turned it on.
Yeah, no, me too, exactly the same.
Now, BMW have said and Telegraph's printed this to their I suppose to their credit. They've actually printed this. BMW has said what we should have done was engage the Rex before we left or halfway along the trip so that there was enough range in the battery pack.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Rex is to supplement the power in the battery pack, not provide all the power. But this is a really complex problem, I think, for consumers to handle. And I've been having quite a ding-dong argument this week on Twitter with various EV advocates and fans and drivers alike about this, because I think this is a fundamental problem. People who drive petrol cars expect their car to behave the same, whether it's got a full tank of petrol or no petrol. Well, almost no petrol. They expect to fill it up and then it will behave the same. They don't expect the behaviour of their car to change based on some arbitrary condition within the car itself.
And to be fair, that's fairly true with EVs as well. I mean, until you're talking about turtle mode, which you're down to the last sort of quarter of a kilowatt, or kilowatt hour, sorry, you get the same performance when your battery is at 5% as you do when it's at 80%. It doesn't change over the course of the car.
Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, it would have shocked me if that had happened. I mean, certainly I wanted to know what the sound of the engine was, so I was playing around with everything.
Yes.
So I mean, I kicked the engine in.
And you can't really
before it needed it. The battery was fine.
You can't really notice it. You don't really notice it that much, do you?
No.
It's just a hum in the background.
But what was clear to me, and I didn't drive it far enough. I think you'd have to drive 50, 60 miles. But what I noticed was the battery level didn't drop then while the engine was on. It seemed to be maintaining it at the same thing. So my range, projected range stayed the same. And the battery level didn't seem to drop for quite some time. I mean, I'm talking 20 minutes driving, but not fast driving because we were driving into South London. So we were in sort of stop-start traffic. I don't know. Is that not the case?
I don't know. Martin, have you experienced this yet?
Well, as I told you, they are very expensive with the range extender in Denmark. So the only i3 in Denmark is without the Rex. But I think it's a very clever car, even though it has this problem. I'll get back to that in a moment, because the range extender is so small that it can, as you say, Robert, keep the state of charge instead of charging the battery. And isn't that exactly what we need as a range extender? Because people do so many miles on the normal battery and only need the range extender very seldomly. This situation comes down to the very, very huge problem about EVs, that the sales force needs to tell you what this is all about and tell people if they're going long distance, switch on the range extender before you go below a certain state of charge. And so it's all about information, because this is a new product, it's new technology. Yeah. I know this is very hard. You see a lot of sales force with the Renault and Nissan and all the others that are not, they don't even know the product when they try to sell people an EV. I know it's a big problem, but it's all about information, because I think the product sounds from theoretically point of view that it's certainly the right technology in this car. I
would say, I think you're totally right. I think you need to have the dealers explain how this all works. Yeah. My question is, my concern about this all is, I think your average consumer is a bit thick, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just think most people don't expect. Robert's turned his lights off.
Yeah, no, it's my battery's gone flat. I'll replace it. Hang on.
Most people don't expect their cars to. They get in their car, they drive it, and then they stop and they get out and they park it up. They don't have to think about, okay, I'm making a trip beyond the range of my battery pack. Therefore, do I need to turn the engine on 20 miles into my trip? And I think what BMW needs to do, and I don't know if maybe this is a feature, but I know in California, because of the CARB regulations, California Air Resources Board regulations, I think the motor has to run the battery pack down to a certain percentage before you can engage the Rex. I think that's what someone told me a couple of weeks ago.
I believe that's the case, yeah.
Yeah, and that worries me. But also,
they can't switch it on
early. They can't switch it on to make sure that there's enough power to give that performance that you would expect of any BMW. The other thing that concerns me slightly is if the battery pack is running down. I want the car to look at your sat nav and go, okay, what destination have you typed into your sat nav? you've got 50 miles to go and I know you've only got 30 miles of range. So when you get to 30, when you've got, 20 miles left, I'm going to turn the engine on. Doesn't matter what you say. I'm going to turn the engine on because I know you're going to need that.
But that would be a simple software update, wouldn't it? That so they get better.
Yeah, and
it depends if the sat nav can send information to the car. Usually, at least I know in the Leaf, the car can send information to sat nav. The sat nav can't send it back, as far as I'm aware, because of the way it's connected. And the i3 Rex for me is it's a study in behavior, and what I can't wait to see is how that behavior happens. We find it very hard even now to predict human behavior. And especially when you look at cars historically have moved from people doing more to people doing less. We used to have manuals. Now a lot of people drive automatics. We used to have chokes. Now it's all automatic chokes, and then it didn't matter. So the history of car innovation has moved from the consumer doing more to the consumer doing less. The Rex at this point is saying, if you want to go on a long journey, you need to manually switch on this extra doohickey in your car that you don't really understand at a certain point because you're going beyond the range of the battery. It's requiring the user to engage with the car and the technology in a way that they haven't had to do for maybe the past 15, 20 years.
And you're explaining this far better than me, Mark. You're saying exactly what I meant to say.
But no, I think it's going to be fascinating because it might work. I don't know. Maybe it will work. Maybe it won't. And my other issue where I've got with it is BMW have been very open with saying it's a safety net. We don't think people will need it. It's a safety net. Mm-hmm. But at what point is it a safety net and at what point is it a crutch? So if you're going on a trip of 60 miles, which is theoretically within the range of the i3 and all other sort of modern EVs, would you switch it on just in case? And someone who was worried and someone who hasn't experienced range anxiety in the way the media puts it would switch it on. But switching it on doesn't help them get over range anxiety. It actually reinforces it because they've switched it on and they made the journey. Now, they don't know whether they made the journey because the car could have done it on petrol or because they switched on the range extender. So it actually reinforces its own use. So we could get to the point where people get into these cars, sit down and go, I'm going more than 45 miles or 50 miles or whatever limit they've set in their head and switch it on and don't need to switch it on, but they do because
so they actually use more petrol. Yeah,
because it's reinforced itself.
I will say in the Volt, I've been in that situation before where I've done a trip and I've gone, okay, I'm getting to London, I need 20 miles for London, and I end up saving that electric power until I get to London and then not using it. I've done that once or twice. Not so much now. It's going to be an interesting one. I'd like to see your viewers, listeners, and people in the chat room and people who are listening to this podcast, please go to our website, www.transportevolved.com. You'll find today's show, which is Transport Evolved episode 176. Leave a comment in that or tweet us at Evolve Transport on Twitter. At Transport Evolve on Twitter. I forgot that our Twitter handle's changed. All right, Mark, it's coming up to an Audible ad break, and I'm giving you loads and loads of time because you always tell me that you need loads of time. Take it away.
Okay. Audible. If you haven't tried Audible, you really, really should. Audible is an online service which allows you to get access to bajillions of audiobooks. And a lot of people out there are skeptical of audiobooks because they don't think it's really reading, when in fact what audiobooks allow you to do is read when you otherwise couldn't. You can read while driving a car or read while exercising because someone is reading to you, which is absolutely wonderful. The way Audible works is it's a monthly subscription scheme. You pay a certain amount and then you get a certain number of credits in return, and then you spend those credits on audiobooks. And usually it's one audiobook is one credit. And I have never seen an audiobook that costs more than one credit, actually, in all the time that I've been using it.
No, I haven't.
We have this wonderful sort of arrangement with them where if you go to audiblepodcast.com/transport evolved and sign up that way, you'll get a month for free, which is one free audiobook. And even if you decide not to go forward, that audiobook is yours to keep. But we get a little bit of money back for sending you their way. And they've got every type of audiobook you could think of. They've got sci-fi and fantasy and fiction and non-fiction and autobiographies and biographies and old BBC sitcoms. They've got news from Gardenia, which is written by Robert Llewellyn. That's on there. Just a little plug for you there, because
thank you very much for that.
And we have a recommendation this week, or Nikki has a recommendation.
Yeah, this is a really great idea. I love this. Okay, so Have you ever played that game as a kid where you do one sentence each and you sit round in a circle and you go round and round and round and you each come up with a story? Did you ever do that, Robert?
I not only as a kid, I've done it far more recently. Yes, no, I mean it's a sort of a parlour game, if one would like to call it that.
Yes, if you're posh like that.
Well, no, I do it with my kids. I've done it with my kids in the past. Yeah.
And
it's fun.
It's a brilliant idea. Now, this is the book called Rip Off. It's 13 of today's most honoured sci-fi writers and of speculative fiction, as they've put it, face a challenge even they would be hard-pressed to conceive. Pick your favourite opening line from a classic piece of literature and then use it as the first sentence of an entirely original short story. In this version of Rip Off, Call Me Ishmael introduced a tough-as-nails private eye who carries a harpoon. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz inspires the tale of an ageing female astronaut who's being treated by a doctor named Dorothy Gale. And Huckleberry Finn leads to a wild ride with a foul-mouthed riverboat captain who piles the waters of hell. This is fantastic, and it's got some great authors in here, hasn't it, Mark?
Oh yes, one of my favourite ones at the moment is John Scalzi.
Yes,
He's a talent who's just kind of exploded onto the scene, and annoyingly with his first novel as well, which is one of the things that I've got to do at some point in my life, it seems.
Let's listen to a selection of it. There you go, Will Wheaton reading part of Rip Off.
This is John Scalzi, Scalzi, is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Brilliant book.
Get that.
Well, he's in it. He's involved in writing it, but there are other folks as well. All right.
I'm just getting up to speed with you. Very, very cutting edge. Audible users.
Audible rocks. Another one you should definitely read. We talked about it in the pre-show. Bedlam, which is brilliant. You should read Bedlam. And I'm sure you've already read Ready Player One, which is also another good one there, Robert.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm just reading Hatching Twitter. I'm sorry.
Oh, cool.
I always say reading when I listen to audiobooks because I take in as much information when I listen to them as I do when I read a book. And Hatching Twitter by Nick Bilton is about the birth of Twitter. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And I've recently, I'm now thinking about it because I've recently also absorbed another book, but I actually read that one on my Kindle. But so I won't talk about that because it's not it may be on Audible, but I didn't listen to it, so it's not relevant.
It's worth saying
Robert
though.
needs to try coronavirus.
Coronavirus, yes. Well, that's coming up later on in the show. Let's go on. Nissan offers Leaf and Oceans in the UK a new ownership package this week with the Care EV package. Now, essentially, it's a 5 promise thing. The 5 things are: if you want to buy a Leaf, you'll get a 24-hour test drive guaranteed. You will get free charging at dealers and at Ecotricity electric highways. You'll also get free roadside assistance in Europe, pan-European roadside assistance. You will also get your battery warranty capacity, 60,000 miles, 5 years, no more than 9 bars lost, Mark. Is that correct?
Yeah. You have to lose 3 bars.
You have to lose 3 bars. And the fifth one is the ICE car rental. Now, on the face of it, that sounds fantastic, but I'm afraid this week I wrote a story kind of picking the scab a little bit from Nissan on this one, which was, it's great, but you must look at the small print because some of the caveats in this are quite big. For example, the ICE, the rental of a petrol car from a Nissan dealer, they will give you a car. It's going to be no smaller than a Nissan Note. You will not get a choice as to what car it is. The dealer's discretion will pick the car. You have to cover the insurance yourself, so your insurance won't cover the car. It won't be a like for like. You will have to pay extra for the insurance, which is fair enough. But then there is a 2,000 mile limit over the course of the year. So if you do want to take a car out for 14 days, that's the equivalent of 143 miles per day. Given the number of rapid Chatterley quick charge stations there are in the UK now, that seems as kind of pointless to me because the only time I'd really want it is if I drove to Scotland. Round trip for me to Scotland and back is the best part of 1,600 miles. If I went to the bits that I like, it would be 1,000 miles if I went to the bits that, nearer the border. So I'm not sure how that would work in the real world. The other caveats with regard to cover, breakdown cover, you get it free for 3 years. And then after that, as long as you have your car serviced by an EV dealer, you will get it. But that recovery will only be in a 30-mile radius. You will only get recovered to the nearest charging station. You won't get recovered to the nearest rapid charger. If there is one in range, you will get recovered to it. But otherwise, it will be to the nearest charging station or to your destination, if that's within 30 miles, or to a destination of your choice. Again, within that 30-mile radius. Interestingly, Nissan says, if you don't have a charging card for the charging station you are at, you won't be picked up. So if you turn up at a rapid charger and it's broken and you've got a card, no, you've got a card and it's broken, they'll do it. But if you've, say, made a trip in Europe, I mean, I'm sure this will happen at some point. Someone will come from the UK to France or to Denmark, for example, and they'll turn up at a charging station that they think is part of some network and works, and then discover it doesn't. It's already happened in the UK. People have turned up at a particular charging station because you've got so many different charging networks, and they might have a Source West when they need a Source London, or they've got a Charge Your Car and they need an Eco-Tricity. Yeah. So that's...
Especially when the fact that the Leaf will route you to the nearest charging station when you're low on power, but it contains no information about what cards you need to access that charging station.
Yes.
So the car will take you there. It doesn't know who owns that post and doesn't know if you need a card to access it. So that's what I find annoying, is that they've introduced a policy which contradicts the way the car operates.
Yeah, yeah.
Or doesn't fit with the way the car operates, I guess would be a better way of saying that.
I think you know, on the front of it, I think Nissan's trying to do the right thing. I think Nissan's going, look, we are trying really hard to make this car more appealing to people, and I think it will work. But at the same time, I think we need to be careful that we are not shooting the horse because people will kind of get angry if they haven't read the small print. It's the same as the BMW i3 all over again, or the same as the NEDC range arguments that have been brewing on Twitter this week. You have to make the consumers really aware.
It's designed for us. It's not designed for people who own cars. It's designed for people who are thinking about buying but are just aren't quite confident enough to take that step to do it. This package has been put together for them to go, you can get this car and we're going to back you.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. But on better news from Nissan, the NV200 van is now in a large fleet for the winter with British Gas up in the north of England. Robert, have you ever been in an NV200 before?
Yes, I have. I did test drive one, and I actually saw in Barcelona the taxi version, which was really nice. It was very, very well done, with no reduction in storage space. Martin,
you're nodding as well.
Yes, I saw it in Barcelona as well. It looks very interesting, and I'm looking very much forward to do a test in this. There's a lot of demand for this in Denmark, I must say. A very nice van is something people are looking forward to.
As a mum, I've got to that point now. I'm not proud of this. I've got to that point now where my kids are big enough that a hatchback is fine, but a minivan actually would be better. We've got two kids, 2 dogs. If we go on a trip in the Leaf at the moment, we can get the kids in, we can get the dogs in, and then kind of the kids have to shuffle up next to each other, one in the middle and one on the right or the left seat, and then the suitcases kind of get piled in the other seat, which is not necessarily very nice. But I think if we had the ENV200, we could actually put the dogs in the back quite comfortably, or maybe even put luggage and then make a board so the dogs could sit on the board, and then they'd still have space. So I think I'm really interested to see what this is like. I can't wait to see it.
A very nice car. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what British Gas thinks, though, because it's a big thing, you know, giving an EV to a fleet of drivers who may or may not know about electric vehicles and giving them it to test for a winter. That's quite a brave move, Mark.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's exactly how I would put it. A very brave move, especially, like you say, just because winter's coming up, they don't have the latest heat pump. There will be some people getting stranded, and I know that the Leafs that were given to the Forest Green footballers, I managed to speak to one of them a couple of weeks after they got their Leafs, and they'd already ran out of power a couple of times that had happened. So it's going to happen. But this is what we need. I mean, people ran out of petrol once and then they never do it again. So maybe it is a learning process people need to go through.
Yeah, there we go. I'm just going to say something to Mark now. This is a completely, what's the word? A completely off-topic production-related thing here, Mark. I've just noticed that the show notes have lost some of their carriage returns. So
I've already fixed that.
You've already fixed that because you're lovely. See, I've just realised. After so far, it seems that EVs are finally taking off in both the UK and in Europe and France, with both UK government and Renault reporting sales rises. In the UK, during Q3 of this year, 1,149 EVs qualifying for the government £5,000 plug-in grant. It's much, much higher than the 106 cars during Q3 of 2012. So I think that's brilliant news. And also, Renault has said it's had a 100% spike in EV sales during the first 10 months of 2013, mostly due to Zoe sales. That's great news, guys, isn't it? Martin?
It's fantastic.
It is very great news. Particularly love the Zoe. I'm driving it for the moment. It's a big advantage here in Denmark where you can actually charge at 11 kilowatts at home in many places.
You have 3-phase at home, do you?
Yeah, exactly. And that has given me a complete new look at how EV driving is when you can charge fast at home.
So that means it takes you 2 hours? You can be charged to full in 2 hours?
2.5, 3 hours.
Wow.
But it makes a lot of difference because I can, during the normal working hours, I can go run the car completely flat and then it charges for 2 hours and I still have more than 75% range for evening drive.
Robert, you've recently had the Zoe, hadn't you? And you had to do quite long, convoluted trips to charge up, didn't you?
No, I did. It was all right in the end. I mean, it was the main thing I had to do was change the wall box in my house. Instead of it being a tethered, cable, I've got a socket now. So that was really the only issue I had with it, was that initially I wouldn't have been able to charge it at home because it has a different fitting.
Right.
But once that was done, it was. I took it down to. I drove all over the place, and I really loved it. It was good. And I mean, it was that thing that was the first 32 amp, which is what I call it, which is the 30. I wish I could learn all the new numbers, but the 32 amp charger on the motorway, when I plugged it into that, how fast that was. Because I've used the same charger on my Nissan Leaf, which only takes 16 amps. Yeah. And it was very noticeable how quick that was. And that's only the 32. So the 32 amp, when you convert that to kilowatts, what's that?
7.
7.
Yeah, although I think you may have used the 11 kilowatt 3-phase 32 amp.
No, I did use that as well.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, goodness, that's confusing.
so 32 amps
one that I plug into a socket, like the little box that I have to put my wire in one end and also in the Zoe, that isn't 32. That isn't 7 kilowatts. That could be 11 kilowatts.
That could be 11.
That'd be 22.
Or 22.
7 kilowatts at 3 phase.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 7 kilowatts at 3 phase is 22.
But then the big Chatterley charger that's got your Chatterley on one side and your Zoe plug on the other, what's that do?
43.
44. Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake. Why do you know all this? And why don't I know it?
It's because we don't have lives, Robert.
We're nerds. I went to push my glasses up my nose and then I realised I have my contacts.
But though, okay. Anyway, so yes, there was something I was going to say, because I've got the 2013 Leaf parked in the garage at the moment here, which I've been driving the last couple of weeks. I've done lots of long trips in it, and the heater. I just wanted to, it's not quite what we're talking about, but the heater. When someone mentioned, Martin mentioned the heater you mentioned the heater in the van.
Yeah.
The heater is just amazing. The difference that heater makes.
Yeah.
I actually opened the windows on a really cold night because I was so hot. I'd forgotten it was on. Because I'm always aware when it's on in my car because I'm so nervous about having it on. On this thing, I forgot it was on. Now I'm going, God, I'm uncomfortable. What's wrong? I'm really hot. And I opened the windows and I went, oh, God, the bloody heater's on. It was so hot in that car. It was on, absolutely. I put it on to demist the windows, just forgot that it was on. It makes so little difference to the range in that car. It's extraordinary. And it really works well. It's really hot. when you have
It
it on
is,
hot.
it is, and because we played with it, and I like the heated seats. I like having a warm bottom.
The model I have does not have heated seats.
No.
Because when you tweeted that to me and I went, oh yes, I must try them. And then I looked down sadly at the blank button boxes. There's nothing there.
Well, I keep talking about putting them in mine, having experienced them in this other car, and I've got the switches in. I haven't got any heated seats yet. I've just got the switches, so I can pretend. Oh, I've got heated seats in my Leaf.
The switches will make you feel warm.
Exactly, it's psychological.
You've got placebo heated seats.
Yes, I have. Brilliant. All right, let's move.
Anyway, yes,
Let's move on. We're being very irreverent. Owners of the Nissan Leaf who live in really hot parts of the world, I suppose that's connected, should now rejoice because Nissan has said that it's planning on producing the improved battery chemistry for the Nissan Leaf from Q1 of next year. That means that the cars will be better capable of withstanding extreme heats so that they won't wilt. So the end to wilting Leafs, basically. Current generation Nissan Leaf battery packs, they're air cooled, as is the next generation Leaf, or this improvement to the battery pack. They're going to be air cooled, but that means that in extreme heats, if your car sat across over hot tarmac, it will suffer, and it will prematurely age the battery pack. I've not explained that very well, but the effects of premature battery aging have really upset people in Arizona who've lost 3 or 4 capacity bars already, some of them. I'm just about to lose my first capacity bar in England, and I've done a lot more.
Done there, Nikki?
I've got 85% according to this little dongle I've got. It says I've got 85% capacity left, and that's when you're supposed to lose your first capacity bar.
But
So
how many miles have you covered?
it's 47,000.
Right.
47,000. 265 quick chargers and nearly 4,000 slow charging sessions. But that's not necessarily full chargers. That's just plugging in and topping up or doing whatever. So not bad, really. But if you're in Arizona, you will get this new technology if you have a battery replacement under warranty. So that's good.
I think I do feel it's getting to the point where they're going to need to release some more information soon, because
Do you mean about battery replacements?
No, about the chemistry they're using and what other things it changes. I find it hard to believe they've found a new chemistry that behaves identically in every factor except for it's more heat resistant. That seems odd to me. Usually, not being the most chemistry-based person, but usually there are trade-offs. You get more heat resistance, but something else suffers because of it. And there's been no hint at that. They're just saying it's everything else is the same and it's more heat resistant, which sounds too good to be true to me at the moment. I'm just waiting for them to come through and say, well, yes, it will have 10% less charge cycles, but in a hot climate, that doesn't matter anyway because of the faster degradation. I think then there's got to be a trade-off somewhere, surely. Maybe someone can tell me I'm completely wrong. I'd be happy to be proved wrong.
I really hope you're right, but I think there might be something different there that we don't understand. We'll have to wait and see. All right, next story. Are early adopters and fanboys who are rabid supporters of cars like the i3, just as they were previous cars, actually spoiling it and putting would-be buyers off? This comes from this week. This is the story. This is a blog post I wrote over at the Green Car website this week, saying that in my experience, some of the people who are defending the range test, for example, the guy from the Telegraph who slowed down on a hill going uphill, people who are defending that are doing it so ferociously that I think they're not prepared to listen to the fact that their favourite car of the moment might be flawed in some way. And my take on this is every car is flawed. We need to accept that these cars have limitations. Every car that comes to the market has limitation. It could be something simple like you can't have the sat nav on if you don't have the radio on, which is what you get in the Chevy Volt, which is annoying as heck. Or it might be that the Nissan Leafs.
When I read that, when you told me that, I just couldn't believe my eyes.
Yes.
Is that really true? If you put the sat nav on, you can't have the radio on.
No. If you have the sat nav, if you have the radio off, it turns off the screen. If you press the button to turn the radio off, it turns the screen off as well.
So you could turn the radio down if you didn't want to hear it.
You turn the radio down, that's the way you do it.
Or
you put it onto auxiliary or something. It's insane. Or some of the other things like the Leaf's range prediction is so diabolically awful. I made a joke.
quite like the
It's
Leafs
comedy
rain
value.
prediction.
I made a
I'm
joke.
the only person in the world who actually likes it.
I made a joke this week that said that obviously learning to drive is easier for Nissan than range prediction, because they've built this robotic car, we'll come up to that later, that can drive itself, and yet they still can't figure out how many miles remaining in your battery pack, which is but I mean, do we think that, do buyers really want to see bickering between essentially what is fanboys about whose car is best, whose car is not best, Martin?
It's very, very difficult. The more we defend the whole technology and the whole story, the bigger the problem can be, absolutely, for the mass adoption. It's very, very difficult to say. I cannot really answer that very easily.
Mark?
I think there's always going to be fans of specific brands, in the same way there's a big war again going on about Xbox versus PlayStation because the new consoles just come out. That's always going to be the case. I guess my issue... I keep knocking my microphone, sorry. My issue is that at the moment, everyone is waiting for the EV that will be the breakthrough EV, the one that get the mainstream into electric cars. And it was the Leaf, because the Leaf severely undercut the iMeave, which was 36,000 at the time, and then that didn't do it, and it became the Zoe. And for a year or so, we had people going, the Zoe is going to be the car that breaks through into the mainstream, and then that didn't quite live up to expectations, and it's now the i3.
Yeah,
and that's going to come, and that's going to go, and then it's going to be the Tesla Model 3 or whatever the next one is, or maybe the e-Golf. It's this constant shifting to the next one, and that
tires me out.
And my worry is it puts people off buying, because if you even dip a toe into the EV culture, everyone's screaming about how this car that's coming out in a year and a half's time will be the car to have. So it's going to stop people going, well, I'll have this car that suits me now because I might as well wait for that one that's coming. That never quite lives up to potential.
Let's be honest. The last EV that I got behind the wheel of and drove and went, wow, this is really good, was the Tesla Model S. And all the others, I've gone, this is a good car. It does what it's supposed to. The i3, for example, I think the i3 is a great car. I think it does what it says on the tin. Certainly the petrol, the electric version, driving in electric mode, it's got lots of pep. I think the 1 foot driving is something that one pedal driving is something you'd get used to, but it kind of catches you off guard to begin with. It's got some weird kind of design features that personally I don't like, but the drivetrain's fine. And I have to say that I think in terms of, it struck me as a car that didn't do anything that other cars on the market don't already do. And I think the thing that I'm struggling with at the moment is people going around saying it will, because I don't think it does. I think we need to just accept that EVs, and we've got to stop trying to pretend that EVs are the same as petrol cars, because they're not. We've got to stop trying to shoehorn people's cars into to fit people's expectations. What we need to start doing is educating and informing and telling people, actually, you don't need that. You need this. And letting them experiment with it and play with it. It's a bit like energy consumption, isn't it? Do you remember when energy-saving light bulbs first came out? They were horrible things. Absolutely horrible things. And you had people who jumped on board and bought them, and they were horrible yellow things, and they took half an hour to warm up, and you ended up leaving them on because you just didn't want them warming up. It took, longer to just leave it. It was less trouble to leave it on than it was to wait for it to warm up. But now we've got LED light bulbs. They've taken a time to get here. It's an evolutionary step. It's taken about 10 years. And I think it's going to take us about 10 years before we have an EV that everyone feels comfortable driving. I think we just need to accept that. We need to accept
do we have a gas car, a petrol car that everyone feels comfortable driving? I mean, I talk to friends who go, the Golf, I can't stand the way the Golf handles. And I have other friends who say the Golf is the epitome of what a small car should be.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It always changes. So I don't think we're ever going to get to the point of this one car will be the breakthrough car. It's always going to be, these cars have just come into the public consciousness. It's going to be a gradual thing.
Yeah. Martin?
And I think there's a very big change right now, because in Denmark, at least, people have a high valuation of Volkswagen and BMW. And I see a lot of interest in these two cars, even though you can always add from our perspective that they cannot charge on three-phase in our country. So you could add that they are low on technology, but I think the amount of people interested in these cars are very, very high compared to some of the other brands. So I think they are for a game changer. I think both the Volkswagen and BMW, I think that's very interesting. And we should not talk them down, say it's not the same technology as you could get in some of the other cars. I think it's very important that we just help people make sure that they buy a car that fits their needs. We can end up talking technologies and so many details, which is interesting for us, but not for the public. They get confused and might not enter this world in many years because of it.
Yeah. And I think what people want is they want to sit in a car, they want to drive it and figure out if they like it or not. And I think that's one of the challenges that we've seen with EV ordering and EV processing and EV sales to this point. Because let's be honest, for the last 3 years, if you wanted to buy an EV, you pretty much had to make your mind up that you were going to buy one before you bought one. It wasn't, certainly in the UK. I think in the US and maybe in parts of Europe it was different. But in the UK, if you wanted to buy an EV, you had to sign up to buy, like the Leaf. You had to sign up beforehand, say, I want to buy this car. And then you had to make your mind up of, okay, I'm going to go and drive 20 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles, 100 miles for a test drive. It wasn't a case of just turning up at the dealer and going, so, oh, wow, that car's kind of cool looking, has everything I need. It happens to be electric. That's the point we need before we get mass adoption, I think. I think it's a really important one. Anyway, moving on. Volvo XC90 crossover SUV is coming as a plug-in hybrid in late 2014. Is anybody else here really excited? Because I am.
Because you're a Volvo fangirl.
Sorry, Robert?
You just like those. You just want a big butch car. That's the whole point.
Guilty as charged. Actually, my real point here is I love Volvo. I think Volvo are very honest and endearing about their cars. They're kind of one of the smaller automakers, and certainly from a journalistic point of view, they seem to have made a name for themselves in the journalistic sphere by rolling out engineers at press events that you wouldn't normally see elsewhere. And you can sit there at a press event with an engineer and you can ask them a direct question and they'll sit there and they'll go, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Or they'll go, oh, yes, that's going to happen. But, and they're quite happy and open to talk about why their technology does the things it does. They don't make any promises I don't think they can't keep. And I've got to say, the V60 plug-in hybrid, having lived with it for 10 days, is a phenomenal high-ticket luxury car. And if the XC90 crossover SUV is anything like that, so many people are going to want it. Same thing, 30 to 40 mile all-electric range, all-wheel drive capabilities thanks to, petrol rear wheel, electric front, the other way around, electric rear, petrol front. It's got the range extended capabilities. It's going to be able to tow because that's what Volvo believes in. It believes in making plug-in cars that can tow as well as do all these other things. It's probably going to have some off-road capability if it's an XC90. Certainly it's going to have the right, attitude for it. And certainly the V60 plug-in hybrid, I took off-road in Orkney. I took it up this long dirt track to the top of this hill and it was fine. So I think this is going to be popular in America. I think it's going to be popular in Scandinavia, just like the Mitsubishi iMEV, and not the iMEV, the Outlander plug-in hybrid. And I think that it's going to be a market that we're going to see lots of people buying plug-in cars for, because in some ways it makes sense. An SUV is a big gas-guzzling car. If you can add a plug-in drivetrain to an SUV to make it less gas-guzzling, and it's got a decent all-electric range. I'm not talking about the Porsche Panamera, which is something stupid in terms of its
6 miles,
7 mile range. If you can make it a decent 30 miles achievable round town, people can use this to commute every weekend, every day, and then at the weekend they can go and see grandma in the next state, or they can go in, camping or whatever. I think that's going to make it a very, very big car. But I guess we wait and see. Let's go and talk to Mr. Aaron Krukow now and his chronovirus.
It was supposed to be just another cargo run, but for Ken Mallory and the 3-person crew of the Raven, an anomaly in deep space changes everything.
An unexpected turbulence shakes the small ship like never before, allowing a deadly virus aboard. One by one, the infected crew is thrown back in time to relive a near-death experience. Only this time, death may be closer than they remember. My short story Chronovirus is available for Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, Kobo, iBooks, Sony, and for all other devices and e-readers through Smashwords. Learn more about Chronovirus by visiting my website at www.aaroncrocco.com.
And also, of course, available as an audiobook thanks to In-Ear Entertainment. Isn't that right, Mark?
It is, and I do need to get my actor back in the studio to re-record that promo. I'd say to record that promo, because that's Aaron doing it from back when it was only a ebook.
Yes, and we'll have to get the... But how would you get the actual character recording it? I mean, that would be weird.
Not the character, but I can get the actor recording it.
Oh, that's true.
He's off in Wales doing panto because
oh, no,
all the
he
actors
isn't.
do panto at Christmas.
Oh, no, he isn't.
Oh, yes, he is. No, let's not do panto.
We didn't respond properly.
He's behind you.
Oh, where?
I'm hoping that is a total mystery to Martin. I hope he's culturally above such nonsense.
Oh, good. Panto is awesome. Anyway, a new Nissan took its autonomous leaf on the roads of Kanagawa in Japan this week on the highway. This is fantastic. It went onto the road, it overtook cars, it sped up, it slowed down, it stopped, it pulled off the road. This is brilliant. Yeah. Self-driving Nissan Leaf. Now, we are still 6 years away from when Nissan said it would hopefully have, absolutely have a self-driving EV buy, and Nissan has said, well, it might be sooner than that. Are we starting to think now that this will definitely happen sooner, Martin?
I'm not too sure it will happen sooner because this is very, very complicated. The technology is maybe not so complicated, but getting the right licenses to run these cars on the road.
Yes. So it's not a case of the technology; it's a case of bureaucrats.
I think that would be the big issue, especially in EU, because you need to have the same laws in all of the countries and so on. Mm-hmm. And in Denmark, where we have so many pedestrians and bicycles, it will be very, very difficult for a car like that to handle this complicated daily scenario in the big cities in Denmark.
Yeah, that's true. Mark?
I completely agree. I think the technology is there. I mean, we've got university teams proving that they can make these cars using off-the-shelf components now. And not even special computers, just off-the-shelf computers and components and cameras, and they can get a car to drive itself. The issue is going to be if one of these cars is in an accident and it turns out the car is at fault. Who's at fault? Is it the person driving the car? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the person who coded the self-driving system? I think it's a whole new, I hate using the phrase, but it's a whole new paradigm in responsibility and ownership and responsibility. So but I want one. I can't wait to be able to just get into the car and say, take me here, and then to sit back and play a game or listen to an audiobook and just not worry. That's the future. I can't wait.
Take me home, James. Robert, would you like one?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it is fantastic. I agree with what everyone said. It is a huge challenge, but having been in a couple of autonomous vehicles that were very, the thing we're still thinking of, because of the way that car looks, is that a car looks like a car. I mean, the ones I went in Abu Dhabi at Mazda City don't look like cars that as we see them today. It was just a round white thing that you sat in a circle around and facing each other, because it just drove itself. There was no steering wheel, no pedals, no controls of any sort. It just, and that was, take me home or take me to work or whatever.
That was brilliant.
Would be the thing. So, I mean, it is such a big leap that I think it's going to come in stages that will eventually get cars that, I think initially we'll get cars that just can park themselves. And there's quite a lot of technology done where you literally get, a kind of courier service. So you get out where you drive it, you get out where you've got your destination is, and the car takes itself away and parks itself. And then when you press a button on your phone, it comes and picks you up again and you drive it again. I mean, I think that might happen sooner in specific locations where that's plausible, but to actually have them, I want it to happen now. I think it's such a brilliant thing. I want to just nod off in the back of the car.
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know what the pricing is going to be of those, but I suspect it's going to be really high. But this
Horrendously
week,
expensive, yes.
Volkswagen has announced the pricing of its pint-sized E-Up. A-Up.
Hey, up.
A-Up. A-Up, lad. Would you like an electric car? It can go up mill and come downhill.
Works 27 hours a day.
Again, mine's probably going, what?
Yeah.
All these Brits, what? But here's the price, okay? And I have to admit to be really shocked. It's going to cost you £19,250 after a £5,000 UK government grant. No battery rental options. That's just the whole car with the battery pack, etc., etc. What are our initial reactions to that? Martin, that's too expensive. No?
I think it is. Yeah, sounds too expensive.
Mark?
Is that figure too expensive? Yes. But will that figure ever come down? Not for a good number of years.
Robert?
Well, I'm going to be slightly have a different opinion of my own for once in my life, because I'm not surprised. I would, because but the thing is, I'm going on this on a picture I've seen on the internet of this car. I haven't actually driven it yet. I'm driving it soon. It's because I don't know what the size of it is or the scale of it is, but that's roughly the same as a Leaf, isn't it? You can get a Leaf for 19,000.
Yeah.
And you can get a Zoe for less, but without a battery. And if you buy the battery with a Zoe, I'm guessing it's going to cost around the same. And the i3 is more expensive, and it doesn't strike. If it was 35,000 quid, I'd go, well, that's bonkers. No one's going to buy any. And if it was £10,000, you go, how did they do that?
Yes.
And it sounds about what I would have expected. It's more than a petrol car, but as which is there seems to be the case. I don't think they've overpriced it to kill it, because I think there has been elements of that with certain big manufacturers that go, we have to make an electric car, but we hate doing it, so we'll make it unbuyable, and then it will just die.
I
just it sounds reasonable.
My issue with the price was its battery pack is only about 3/4 of the other car's battery pack.
It is smaller.
Oh, is it? What? I don't know what's the kilowatt hour battery pack.
It's 18 kilowatt hour battery pack, right. I believe, in the E-Up. So that should have saved a good grand or so. I don't know. I was hoping it'd just be a little bit less. Maybe
I was hoping 15 to 16. Maybe I was being wishful thinking.
That would have been much better.
But it is a small. It's not the same class as the Leaf. It is a much smaller car than the Leaf. Right. It is a much smaller car, and I've just pulled my headphones out, so I can't hear a thing I'm saying. It's a much smaller car than the Leaf, and it really doesn't strike me as a car that people will buy if they can turn around and get a Leaf that's much bigger for a little bit more. And I think that's the challenge for Volkswagen. Yeah. And it ties in really nicely with a survey this week in the US, which said that more consumers would buy an EV if they could buy a small sedan, not a small hatchback, because obviously they like sedans or saloons, as we call them in Europe.
Saloon, yes.
A saloon, darling. With an all-electric range of 100 plus miles for $25,000 or less. Right. Interestingly, it also said that customers would want to charge public charging they would want lots of it in order to buy the car in the first place, but then they'd want charging to be cheap or free, which proves Tesla's business model works. Okay, they've got a really expensive car, but Tesla's going, here, have free fuel.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people will want. And that's, I think, essentially, I've been arguing with people the point about range. Is it range? Is it price? Is it practicality of the EV that makes it appealing? And time again, people who aren't EV experts going, it's all about range. Do we need more range? People who aren't EV experts, they're turning to me and saying, I couldn't give a damn if it does 70 miles or not. I just want it to be cheap. I want to be able to afford it. Yeah. It's about, is this car going to save me money? And that's the bottom line for most people when they're buying a car. And this is what this survey proved. Fuel efficiency was the number one priority, because it translates to less money going out of their bank account every month. And okay, we're coming out of a recession, but globally, there's been some really scary reports lately about the future of our economies and how we owe, several thousand times our GDP in terms of debts in the West, and how, you know, our economic system cannot continue in the way it's continuing. Oil cannot continue to be as cheap as it's being, and oil will go up, and electricity will cost of electricity will go up. But if you're producing it yourself and it's cheap to run and cheap to produce, then people will buy EVs. I mean, case in point, Bhutan this week said it wants to be the EV capital of the world. Tiny little kingdom of Bhutan in the foothills of the Himalayas. We are going to be EV specialists. We're going to have EV government fleets. We're going to train our citizens to build EVs, their own EVs, so that they can afford them, so they're cheap, because obviously cars like the Leaf are just too expensive for your average Bhutanese citizen to afford. So, you know, this is going forward, and they've got this massive hydroelectric dam there that generates a lot of clean green power, and so, you know, that's a perfect thing.
It's interesting. I've been sort of fleshing out a new model for EVs in my head for a little while, because the big issue seems to be that people aren't very good at looking at long-term financial gain. They much prefer short-term financial gain. So the issue with paying more up front but saving money in the long run doesn't sit well with a lot of people. They'd rather save money up front, even if it costs them more in the long run, which is why these cars aren't selling, because they see sticker prices of 26,000 and Joe, I can't afford that, even though 26,000 over 10 years is actually going to save them money compared to a car they're going to get now that's 15 grand and pay petrol. So can we not flip that on its head? Can we not sell these cars? Can a manufacturer not come in and sell these cars for 12, 13, 14,000 pounds with the battery included, but all the charging you do is monitored at home? You get a new monitor put on and you pay more for the electricity that you charge and put into your car. So instead of charging your car at home for 11p a kilowatt hour, you pay 50p a kilowatt hour. So the manufacturer still makes back that money. And in fact, from their point of view, the financial income they're going to get is going to be sustained over a longer range. So it might actually be better for them financially. And the people get a cheaper car up front, which is what they want, but they end up paying the same anyway.
Yeah,
that model could work. It's
good
just
idea.
something.
It's an interesting idea, because I mean, it is that with the hours I've spent talking to audiences in the last 2 years, explaining how cheap it is to run, and how already my Nissan Leaf is actually cheaper than a base level Ford Focus that's been driven the same distance. You know, you can actually do the maths. It's cheaper. You know, but that doesn't. You're absolutely right. It doesn't. You know, because they still sit there going, yeah, but you know, it's 22,000 quid or whatever it is to buy it new. And you know, they can't because it's spread out. It's the same with, I mean, unfortunately, it's the same with all renewable energies. With renewable energy as well as electric vehicles, is the cost is so much up front. It's so front loaded, and the actual running costs of solar panels, wind turbines, tidal turbines, all those things are comically low once you've built them. But the cost of installing them is very high.
Stupidly high. Yeah.
Nikki, I'm really sorry I've got to go, because we've actually got people here, and I've just had a wave through my studio window.
Thank you very much, Robert. We are just about to stop anyway, so thank you very much for joining us. And
it's been great fun, and I've learned a lot.
New series of Fully Charged starting soon.
Fully Charged is coming really, really, really soon, and there's some very exciting stuff, including Tesla Model S, BMW i3, and a very in-depth Nissan Leaf 2013, which I started recording in February, and I'm finishing on Tuesday. It's taken that long.
Looking forward to it. It makes our shows look stupid now, Robert.
So he's showing us that.
I've got to release the Nissan video this year, because it's going to be out of date very, very soon.
Robert, you've been an absolute gent. Thank you for joining us, and take care. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Take care.
All right,
bye-bye.
bye.
There you go, Robert Llewellyn, an absolute star as always, joining us on the show. We're coming down to our final two stories now, and this is a fun one, Mark. This is Hyundai, who is going to give people who buy its fuel cell vehicle free hydrogen, like Tesla and electricity.
They're going to give people free hydrogen?
Yes. So if you drive one, you'll be able to fill up for free with hydrogen.
How are they affording that? Hydrogen's not cheap to produce.
Well,
especially if they're splitting water for it.
Yeah. Martin, do you understand this?
No, I don't understand it. And especially because the municipality of Copenhagen, the city of Copenhagen, bought quite a few of these Hyundai's fuel cell cars. So we had them in the streets of Copenhagen. And as I also understand, the production of hydrogen, the filling stations, they are so expensive.
That's insane. It's insane. It would be interesting to see. I don't think they're going to sell.
Maybe they've got a deal. I mean, hydrogen is a fairly common-ish byproduct of a lot of industrial processes. So maybe they've struck a deal with someone who has it as a waste product. That's a possibility. But then that model's not sustainable going forward if what they're aiming for is everyone driving hydrogen.
Yeah.
But it would work on a small scale. So.
All right. Well, let's see. We'll see what happens.
Good.
I'm not going to
for them.
pass judgment. All right. And finally, it's been Thanksgiving this week, and in case you hadn't noticed, and we've asked you, our viewers and listeners and everybody else, what you're thankful for this year. Here are some of your responses. Klaus writes, I am thankful that I can drive to New York City and not worry about range. He has a Volt. Rick says, I'm thankful that the EV has truly arrived. Tesla has established and demonstrated the market for pure BEVs with 260 miles of range and phenomenal pickup. Now the loony outer edges of the media universe can attack it without any hope of discrediting EVs to their captive, equally lunatic fringe. Guy very sweetly says, I'm thankful for Transport Evolved. Nikki and Mark rock. Our listeners rock too, don't they, Mark?
Yes. Yes, because without them, we're two mad people talking.
We're two mad people talking about EVs. And who else have we got? Cara says, I'm thankful for all the EV lovers, movers and shakers. Dennis says, I'm thankful for the ARB, as we call it in California, enabling our varied EV choices. He's also written an amazing blog post. He's listening right now, probably in his Tesla, because that's what he likes to do. He's also written this amazing blog post on his website, which is in the show notes, that you should go and read, because it really is a really nice post. Dennis, well done. That was brilliant. I'm not going to read it all out now because it will take the rest of the show. Jonathan says, I would have to say I am thankful for Ecotricity in the UK, not only a great provider of energy who invests its profits in renewable generation, but the provider of the electric highway fast charge network, something everyone else seems to have failed to get up and running. What about you guys? What are you thankful for this year, Mark?
Oh, you had to come to... See, this is really weird. Up until this year, I've not really had many US friends, so Thanksgiving usually passes me by without me giving it a second thought. I guess what I'm thankful for is that I found an area that seems to match with me very well. My slightly hippie-ish save the world-ness and eco-technology-ness is kind of comes together, and it's a space in which I can talk and I enjoy doing, and I can have fun. So it's a very selfish thankfulness. But before this, I was a bit of a corporate up the management chain type, and this has given me a new way of living my life, and I like it.
That's fantastic. Martin?
Well,
He's vanished.
If you are able of charging fast at home, as I told you before, this has been the most fantastic experience, that you can do a lot more kilometers driving from charging at home. You don't need public fast charging or infrastructure very often. That has been a fantastic experience.
That is true. I think fast charging really has made a huge difference. And I'm thankful for everybody. Obviously, I'm thankful for everybody who watches and listens to this show, because without you guys, I still would be stuck in a job I didn't really enjoy. I think we're now entering our third year, Mark.
Yes.
I don't think you've been with us 3 years, but the show, I think, is probably now entering its third year.
Yeah, and I've been with you nearly 2. I think it's going to come up soon.
There you go. And you guys have been amazing, and also all the friends we've made on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Google+. I'm thankful for all the subscribers and the growth that we've experienced in the website. You know, when we started the new website off a couple of months ago, we were getting sort of 30, 40 people watching and coming to the site every day. I think this week we topped 1,000 per day for the first time, which is tiny. It's a tiny amount compared to what, most websites get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands a day. But the fact that we've done that in just 2 months is a phenomenal testament to you guys. So thank you very much, everybody at home. And I'm also really thankful for my Leaf and my Volt, which have provided me with, and my family, with great zero emissions driving, mostly zero emissions anyway. And I suppose I'm also grateful for the health and happiness of the people I care about. So there we are. And that really is it for today's show. Thanks everyone for joining. Sorry this one went on a little bit long, but we had 2 great guests. Hey, 2 guests, an hour and 25 minutes. We can't really complain with that, really. But thanks to everyone at home for watching. We'll be back next week at the usual time of 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. In the meantime, you can find us at transportevolve.com. We have daily news posts, so please come and look and read them. We have between 3 and 5 a day, depending on if Mark and I can write. We're also looking for contributors. If you are an EV person and you'd like to write for us, we can't pay you at the moment because you're not making any money. But
we don't pay ourselves.
We don't pay ourselves. But if you would like to write for us as a guest columnist, or you'd like to write a daily post, get in contact. Send us an email, Nikki or Mark, at transportevolve.com, depending on which one of us you want to write to. And don't forget to watch TEN this week, Transport Evolve News, which will be live on, be going up on the internet on Friday. We didn't do that one live, we do that pre-recorded because it's green screened, in case you hadn't guessed. A bit like this one here with my green screen here. And that really is it, isn't it, Mark? Do you have anything else to say?
No, just everyone, I do hope you enjoyed your turkey, all the Americans out there. I hope you did. And if not, I hope you had a lovely Thursday, everyone else.
Yes, and someone said it's 7 p.m. It is 7 p.m. It used to be 8. Sorry. 7 p.m. British summertime. You're quite right. Thank you, chat room. Take care, everyone, and don't forget to plug in. See you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.